So if you're a fan of K-dramas or Korean variety shows, you've definitely heard them. You know, those catchy, super repeatable phrases that just get stuck in your head. But have you ever really thought about what they mean? Because a lot of the time, they're so much more than just a funny line or a quick comeback. They're actually like a window into the culture itself. So let's get into it and look beyond the subtitles. Okay, so picture this. You're watching a K-drama and a character's looking at a job posting. They see this phrase, passion pay. Now, the subtitles might just say something simple like low salary, but the real meaning? Oh, it goes so much deeper. It's this really loaded term that basically tells young people, hey, if you're passionate enough about this work, you should be totally fine with getting paid very little, or maybe nothing at all. I mean, it sounds kind of inspiring on the surface, but in reality, it's often used to justify exploiting people who are just starting out. And yeah, that question right there, that really nails it. These buzzwords are absolutely packed with cultural context, with social commentary, with history, all stuff that a simple subtitle can just completely fly past. They're kind of like a code, and in this explainer, we're going to start cracking that code. All right, first up, let's take a look at where some of these iconic and sometimes really confusing phrases actually come from. You know, they don't just pop up out of nowhere, they always capture a very specific moment in time. You know, every single one of these has its own backstory. For example, "oh really" came from a super famous comedy show and everybody started saying it. What is so important? That's this really powerful, soul-searching line from the amazing movie The Wailing. And then you've got terms like eating alone and drinking alone. They're not just descriptions of an activity, they reflect this huge societal shift towards individualism. These phrases just spread like wildfire because they perfectly captured a shared feeling or a moment or an inside joke that everyone was in on. Okay, so that's the history. But what about now? Where are these buzzwords being created today? Well, the factory is kind of moved. But before we dive deeper, we got to get on the same page about what a buzzword or 유행어 actually is. The most important thing to know is that it's temporary. It's kind of like a linguistic firefly. It shines super brightly, captures the whole vibe of the present moment, but a lot of them just disappear within a year. They never even make it into the dictionary. And this timeline, it just lays it all out perfectly. Think back to the 90s and early 2000s. TV comedy shows were the absolute kings. They were the ones creating all the buzzwords. Then, fast forward to the 2010s, and the power starts shifting to the internet and these massive hit dramas. But today, the new factories are YouTube, webtoons, and personal live streams. The power is now in the hands of individual creators. And this right here is the wild part. It's a total flip. Mainstream TV isn't the main source anymore. Now, TV shows are actually looking at what's trending online and adopting those phrases to try and stay relevant. It just goes to show you how much the whole media landscape has been turned on its head. Okay, now for the really mind-bending stuff. We're going to see just how deep these nuances can go by looking at one single, simple word. Because depending on the context, this one word can have completely opposite meanings. And that's where things get really fascinating. This is where translation gets really tricky. The Korean word for play is nolda, but if you just translate it as play every time, you're going to run into some major misunderstandings. It's a perfect example of how one little word can hold an entire spectrum of cultural meaning. So, meaning number one is the happy, simple one. Nolda is exactly what it sounds like when we think of a kid running around a playground, laughing and having a great time. In Korean culture, a child who is playing is seen as a healthy child. This is the positive, straightforward meaning we all get. But here's the twist. You take that exact same word, nolda, and you apply it to an adult who just finished school, and the meaning does a complete 180. If someone says an adult is playing at home, it means they don't have a job. It's heavy. It carries this weight of anxiety and social pressure. Suddenly, playing is, well, it's the last thing you want to be doing. And get this, it's not even just about people. You can use this word for a machine. If a factory manager says a machine is playing, it means it's just sitting there, idle, not working, not being productive. So you've got three totally different meanings, all from the same simple word. So what's the takeaway here? It's that context is everything. A one-for-one, word-for-word translation just completely falls apart. If you don't understand the cultural context, who's talking, who they're talking about, you miss all of it. You miss the joy, you miss the anxiety, or you miss the economic reality that's packed into that one little word. All right, so let's zoom out a bit. because these buzzwords do more than just play with meaning. They act as this living, breathing record of a society's biggest moments, its anxieties, its politics, its humor, the whole shebang. Yeah, this is where you can see that language isn't just a tool for talking. It's a reflection. It's like a snapshot of what an entire society is thinking and feeling at a particular moment in history. And this table has some fantastic examples of this in action. Let's take haya. This was an old, almost dead word for a political resignation, but during the 2016 crisis, boom, it was suddenly on everyone's lips. Or how about jasosel? It's a mashup of personal statement and novel, and it perfectly captures the intense pressure young people feel to basically write fiction on their resumes to get a job. And of course, during the pandemic, you get this witty but kind of dark pun, 확진자, which changes confirmed case to confirmed fat case to talk about gaining weight during quarantine. Okay, for our last section, we're going to get super granular. We're going to see how just changing one tiny sound in a word can reveal these incredibly deep cultural values about respect and social relationships. I mean, this is wild. The idea that the very sounds of words can carry social weight, it's not just about picking the right word, it's about how the word itself is built. Okay, check this out. You start with the root word nam, totally neutral. It just means another person or a stranger. But change that a vowel to an I and you get nim, a suffix you add to show deep respect, like for a teacher. Now change that a to an o and you get num, a really derogatory term for a person, something like jerk or worse. Neutral, respectful, contemptuous, all decided by one little vowel. And really, that brings us to this powerful idea here. The words we create and the words we choose to use, they're not passive. They don't just describe the world around us, they can actually help shape it. If a society keeps creating more negative terms, it might just become a more negative place. And hopefully the reverse is true too. And that's really the big question to think about, isn't it? Whether it's a K-drama buzzword or some new slang in your own language, these words are never just words. They're like these tiny cultural artifacts, telling us who we are, what we care about, and what kind of world we're all building together, one phrase at a time.